One person's past is another person's present and another's future, depending on the point of reference. Einstein said,
"You have to accept the idea that subjective time, with its emphasis on the now, has no objective meaning. The distinction between past, present, and future is only an illusion, however persistent."
MacTaggart dismissed the idea of passage of time on philosophical grounds, and modern science seems to agree with him despite the conflict with common sense. But don't we all feel the flow of time? We get older, the world around us changes. But consider the phrase, the flow of time. How can time move? How fast does it move? An hour per hour?
The nature of time as it appears in human consciousness is a puzzle because, as many people will tell you, the external world doesn't seem to require the passage of time or the flow of time. It's as if the world were frozen, strung out in its temporal dimension. And yet, from the point of view of an individual consciousness, we seem to be climbing up a ladder, and there's this specious present. I'm inclined to think that the impression of a moving now, the impression of a now to begin with, and the impression that it's moving, is an impression that arises from the peculiar way in which the human brain is wired up. It's a tool that evolution has given us in order to deal with the world, and it allows us to deal quite successfully with the world. But it may suggest something to us about the structure of the world that isn't true.
If the past and the future are as real as the present, then we are the victims of a universal and gigantic delusion, namely the illusion of temporal becoming. Every one of us experiences what we call the passage of time. The moments of time elapse. The future doesn't exist. It's pure potentiality. We'll create the future. The past no longer exists. It has ceased to be. And on this view that says that the past and the future are equally real, we have to say that all of this experience is illusory. And to me, that is so counterintuitive. That's like the person who says that the external world is unreal, that in fact you're actually a brain in a vat of chemicals being stimulated by a mad scientist to hallucinate the external world. Why should you believe such a thing? In a similar way, I would ask, why in the world should we believe that the temporal becoming, the passage that we experience, is in fact nothing but an enormous illusion?
No matter what we believe science tells us, we feel the passage of time, of the present becoming memories and the expectation of the future. Sometimes it passes slowly, sometimes it flashes by much too quickly.
The beginning of Catch-22, the novel by Joseph Heller, there's a character there, Dunbar, who works on increasing his lifespan through having as boring a life as he can. So he lies in his bed, he doesn't do anything interesting, because as soon as you get caught up in something, then time flies by. So you have to have a long life, a good lifespan, you have to be bored. That's, of course, exploiting this distinction between time as it feels to us and time as it is, because his life won't get any longer in the objective sense, but he will have the feeling of a much longer life, at least while it goes on. So these are the sorts of things that you tend to say when you want to make that distinction between the lived phenomenological subjective time and the objective time. Then again, you might say there's no real distinction here. There's just one time, the objective time, and then you can feel it differently. You can apprehend it differently, so that the distinction is really between what's really there and how we think about it.
What is really there? In physics, all of the past and the future are simply there, and time extends in either direction from any given moment, the way that space stretches away from any particular place. Some people will say that the time of physics is not real time. We feel it pass, a sensation we can't shake. Others will say that whatever we experience mentally, time does not pass, and the past, present, and future don't exist.